Hello and welcome to the Curious AF podcast. I'm your host, Luke. Today I thought I'd do a solo episode reflecting on probably one of the most interesting and fun years of my life. A year of sobriety. It's actually been 14 months now. I think it was one of the best years of my life. I mean, the first 2 months were fairly brutal. But then things got really easy after that. I think partly because I got over. I don't know. It sounds weird to say, but I guess you could say the cravings, and I think partly because of psychedelic experience I have had, which I'll stick around to the end, and I think I'll dive into that a bit more. But yeah, so first of all, I guess I want to talk about why I got sober, why I quit drinking. I think it's because I guess the consequences of my drinking just got too much to ignore. And it's always hard talking about this and talking about sobriety because maybe this is just in my mind, but I feel like when I start talking about sobriety, people instantly go to the type of alcoholic who drinks every day and, a full-blown morning till sleep, out of control alcoholic, needed to go to rehab. I don't fit that bill, but that being said, I mean, if somebody knew me like somebody knew me closely for the majority of my adult life, I think it would be apparent that I had an issue. That being said, every time I've quit in the past, people have gone, "Oh, why? Like, why are you quitting? You don't need to quit. You didn't have a problem." So I don't know. Maybe I hit it better than I thought I did, but yeah, like the consequence. I mean, and this is something I've said a few times before. The consequences always, like for a long, I think for the majority of my drinking, the consequences outweighed the positives. But then also, I think there's other elements that come into play, like just chemical hooks and genetics, right? So there's a perfect combination that apparently I have that just I don't know, made it extremely difficult for me to walk away from. But yeah, I think things got uglier and uglier, and I started hating myself more and more because of my drinking, and it just got to a point, and it got to a point where it was too painful to ignore anymore. And I'm actually extremely thankful that it did. And anybody that listens to this podcast a bit will be sick of this reference because I bring it up all the time, but I absolutely love it. And it's when Steve-O, who's also sober, talks about the worst thing in the world would be to have a drinking problem that's just bad enough to kind of fuck up your life, right? Like you never live out your hopes and dreams. It kind of fucks up your relationships. It might ruin your relationship with your kids. You might have a crappy job because you can't hold a good one. But it's potentially not bad enough that you have the motivation to get sober. So you're just living in this no man's land. And I actually think this is more common, and I'm going to try really hard to not get too preachy here, but I'll get a little bit preachy. I think this is a lot more common and in society, especially in Australian society, than people usually think of, right? I think a lot of blokes that I talk to one-on-one would admit that they drink more than they want to drink, but the consequences aren't bad enough to stop. But I think realistically, if you really delved into their life now, not saying they're an alcoholic, but if you really delve into their life now, and then if you put that next to a life of the same person with sobriety, I think the person with sobriety would be happier. Okay, I'm getting preachy, but I don't care. I think the person with sobriety would be happier, and that's because I'm happier. I am so much fucking happier. So yeah, I mean, like the first 2 months were extremely difficult, but then once I realized how much my life was better, things got easy. Plus that psychedelic experience, which I'll get into at the end. Yeah, the last month before I quit, things got fairly bad, and I don't know. I think over the last year, it's like my drinking got to a point where it's like it was unpredictable, right? Like I would not drink much there were spouts where I'd be drinking a few drinks a night, every night, but then there were times when I would not drink. I wouldn't drink during the week, right? But so none of that everyday stuff was my problem. My problem was this like surprise slap in the face of just getting blasted on a random night and not knowing where the fuck it came from. And that would happen sometimes when I was out, and I would embarrass myself. That being said, nobody said I'd embarrass myself. People were like, "Oh, why are you embarrassed by that?" But internally, I didn't like the way I behaved. And maybe some people did think I was an absolute dickhead and just didn't say anything. That's probably definitely true. But then even at home, right? Like there was at home, sometimes I'd have a couple of drinks, and that would lead to going, somebody's giving me a nice bottle of scotch. I'll get that out. And all of a sudden, I'm at home by myself at 11 or 12 o'clock, just absolutely blasted. And then you wake, and then you feel like shit for a week, right? And there were a few other things, but yeah. So that was the issue. The issue was binge drinking and popping up at unexpected times. And that being said, in one side of my family, that there is a lot of addiction, right? So it's also in my blood, and I've said this before, but I do think that I remember when there was this time when I was like 14 or 15. Some people who listen to the podcast will know exactly what I'm talking about. Where we just went to a friend's house, and the first time we tried beer, and I just like sculled it, and I like it, and just got blasted and made a complete dick of myself, right? And I was like 14, right? I did start drinking quite young. I'd drinking a few times before that as well. I think I would have drunk a fair few times when I was like 12 or 13. A few friends, we used to steal alcohol from my parents. But then like when I was 18, I remember multiple times when I first started like heavily drinking, like going out and just losing control, blacking out, and just like having this thing, like having the knowledge that I have that this is going to be a problem. Just going, yeah, this is going to be a problem. Enjoy yourself while it lasts, but you're going to have to quit, right? And I think that like I just kept putting off that needing to quit, putting off that needing to quit, putting off that needing to quit until it kind of came to a head. And because I didn't want to deal with quitting, right? I mean, anybody that like, and most people will, I think a lot of people deny the fact that quitting alcohol, if you're not a complete alcoholic, is actually quite difficult, right? And you only have to go talk to most blokes who try to do a dry month and then make it a week into it and go, oh, fuck this, I can't do it. So the first 2 weeks, I mean, the first couple of weeks, the first month was hard, right? And I think that's because I'm naturally an extremely restless person. So one of the uses of alcohol for me, which I think was actually it was a useful thing, I would come home. I run a business. I'm strung extremely high, and I need a way to switch off. I need a way to switch off and be present with my family. And a couple of beers would do that, without a doubt. Yeah, so I would come home, have a couple of beers, and be in home mode. But the problem is I couldn't always stop at a couple, and then the next day I would wake up even worse, and then it was just like this cycle. But I needed to solve the get home and wind down problem. Because I remember coming home and just being so stressed out. Like I was sitting there and like my neck is tense. I'm like kind of shaking because I can't, because I'm so stressed. So I had to solve that problem. So I solved that problem by quite frankly working out like a motherfucker, right? Like and it works. And I work out a lot, and I work out quite intensely. I run, I cycle, I do weights. I used to swim, not really that much anymore. I hike mountains, and that is a fucking game changer for me, right? I don't know whether I'd be able to maintain my sobriety in the first couple of months without that level of exercise. It really takes me out of that like really restless, anxious mindset. It does wonders for me. So there's a hot tip for anybody that's was listening to me preaching before about how much better your life could be. That helped. The other one's meditation. Yeah, I'm a very deep meditator. I'm not a deep meditator. Geez, that sounds wanky. I meditate a lot, and it helps me because I get extremely wound up, stressed, frazzled, angry, frustrated, and it just helps me catch myself before I spiral. That's pretty much the best thing I get about meditation. It allows me to alleviate a lot of the suffering from just snapping into anger. That's probably the best way to put it. Okay, shift in identity. This is a funny one for me. Because I did have an identity, especially when I was younger, to be this loose and wild and crazy guy. And look, this goes into why I think I started drinking. In high school, I was extremely anxious. Early high school, I got picked on. And then I kind of overcompensated by trying to be tough when I was older, which is embarrassing. But yeah, so I think I started drinking because I was extremely anxious, and I don't think I liked myself. I didn't have a close, loving relationship with my family, and I was very anxious at school. And this really let me get out of my skin, it let me become this kind of crazy, wild party guy, which a lot of people probably thought I was a dickhead, but then certain people thought it was funny and cool, but then like the issue with that is the more you get into that lifestyle and the deeper into that lifestyle you get, first of all, you're using it as a crutch, so you're never going to develop those social skills in the first place, which over the last year, my self-confidence, on a side note, has gone through the fucking roof. Oh, and second of all, you start providing yourself with the evidence that you're the bad person that you think you are, right? So the behavior that stems from drinking can not always, but I mean, it can be unethical, it can be embarrassing. And then you're giving yourself more evidence of why you don't like yourself, and then your drinking becomes worse, okay? And then you end up in this self-fulfilling prophecy, or you end up spiraling in this, I don't know, death spiral of shame, I'll call it. Yeah, so the identity shift was hard, right? Because I also, I think I ran in circles where if you didn't drink, you're a pussy, okay? That's quite blunt, but that's the reality of what it is, right? So I had to fight like the internal demons of thinking I'm weak because I quit drinking, it's the exactly fucking opposite, right? It is exactly opposite. It is weak, and again, apology. It's not weak. That's really I fucking hate. I don't like calling people weak. It's shit. I'll put it this way. It is strong to have the strength to quit drinking. So it's ironic that I think that I had this mindset that I'm weak and I'm a pussy because I don't drink. Okay. So yeah, so it took me a while, and I mean, well, one of the reasons I quit is because I wasn't being the husband or father that I wanted to be, and that is my North Star. Like that is my top priority, my 100% value. And once I really kind of got my head around that, like this is the reason I'm quitting. Like also like just I think alcohol breeds anxiety as well. Like just my confidence naturally went up, and I kind of just stopped giving a fuck what people thought, right? Like I know a lot of people that get like I've talked to a lot of sober people now, and a lot of sober people can't deal with the conversations going out. People go, oh, why aren't you drinking? Oh, have a drink. Right? They can't deal with it, right? So they'll pretend to drink. Whereas I quite quickly built up the confidence in myself to be like, no, I'm doing this for my family. And if you think I'm weak, or you're going to call me a pussy for being the man I want to be for my family, well, then fuck you. Simple as that. Like I just don't care, right? It's but like that took a lot of, for me, values work. Like what do I value, and what is the man, or what is the type of person I want to be? And sobriety is a way to achieve that. And I'm that confident in the knowledge of that I've just kind of got over that fairly quickly. But I do remember being younger, like really giving into that anxiety. Like I tried to quit for a week, and I'd go to the pub and somebody would call me a pussy, and I'd scull fucking 6 beers. So yeah, I'm past that. My relationships, connection with my family, better than ever. Unbelievable relationships with my wife. We're stronger than ever. With my kids, that's stronger than ever. I now have a daily habit. That's another thing I should talk about habits. But I now have a daily habit that every day I connect with every member of my family, or everyone in my house. So when I get home from school, I don't sit on the couch and scroll. I put my phone on the bench, and I'll go talk to my daughters, my son if he's there, my wife, everybody individually, right? And then I tick that off my list. Yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about with drinking and habits. I would build up. So I'm a very avid habit tracker. I track meditation training, writing, reading. I like to read a lot. Connection with family. And if you go out and get blasted one night, you will fuck up all 5 of those habits, and then you have to build them up over weeks and weeks and weeks. You kill any momentum of anything you're doing in your life. A hangover, a 3-day hangover, let me be very clear, a 3-day hangover will kill any momentum for anything you are trying to achieve in your life. And not drinking for a year straight, that momentum compounds and it compounds and it compounds. And I am preaching, but I don't care because my life is so much fucking better now. Yeah, okay, I'm preaching. I do another thing with the family connections. My daughter recently got diagnosed with diabetes. It was a very, very difficult time for our family. I would have hated to think about how I dealt with this if I was still drinking. We got through it and we connected as a family. So for comparison, I once lost tens of thousands of dollars in this business deal, right? Sold a company a bunch of stuff. They went under. I'm not a secure creditor, so the lawyers tell me to get fucked. And I go home and I deal with it by drinking 3 bottles of red wine, right? And then and then I'm anxious for a week and frustrated, and then I finally deal with it a week later. The diabetes thing was the diagnosis was 10 times worse than that. And I think it's a lot healthier to just process things, right? Like I would have I'd hate to think how I would have processed that if I was still drinking. So mind and body was the next topic. I did speak about working out. I'm fitter than I've been in a long time. That being said, when I was drinking, I was also quite fit, surprisingly. But I'm sleeping better. I'm recovering better. I like myself more. I mean, that's the biggest one, to be honest. Because I think liking yourself, so not repeatedly doing things that make you not like yourself makes you like yourself. It's pretty obvious. Liking yourself leads to not thriving for others' approval, which leads to less anxiety. So yeah, career and creativity I wanted to dive into. Look, I feel like none of this is very surprising, but I have an extremely stressful career. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, and I'm very high strung. And this is just another thing where a hangover will kill all momentum. And the compounding effect of being switched on for a year straight, the business is doing better than ever. My relationship with my staff is doing better than ever. I don't fly off the handle and say stupid things that I have to deal with. Also, I've started exploring creativity. I mean, I don't think I'd be sitting here doing this podcast if I was drinking. I actually started the podcast a month after quitting alcohol because I needed something, right? Like, I think a lot of people want to do something creative, and there's only so much time in the day, and if they're drinking, that I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a reach. Okay. FOMO, loneliness, boredom, near slips, all that kind of stuff. I do have this thing I do have FOMO, but I'm just so aware that the consequences of drinking and having that night out, I have to forego all of those amazing things that I just spoke about, right? I do have these moments, and I think this is maybe genetic. I don't know if everyone has this. I without a doubt have an addictive brain, addictive personality, and that's a huge positive in some ways, but it's a negative when it comes to alcohol consumption, or the opposite of. But yeah, like I do have these moments when I'm driving home and I'm stressed, and something will trigger me, right? Like I'll just like see a bottle and I'll go, whoa, I'm missing out on life. I'm not living my best life. If I could just have a few drinks, like if I could get over this, and then I could just have a few drinks to relax. But I'm lying to myself. Like I think that something's going on in my brain where I'm lying to myself, because like my life now is better than my life when I was drinking, without a doubt. Right? Like Objectively, I'm not saying this. I'm not secretly like white knuckling it. Life's better, right? So those little moments where you want to trick yourself into because you miss this little like this little feeling of being able to relax. I am not taking into account things in a holistic way, because that's not all I get from drinking. Yeah, I get that little relax at the end of the day, but I also get the dark stuff, the really dark stuff, and I know myself enough to know that I can't have one without the other. I can't have little relaxing drink after without peering into the abyss. I just know that about myself now. But then, like, going on what I said before, I don't know if most people know it, but I do think most people's life would be better if they could, like, a lot of blokes, man, like 2, 3, 4 drinks a night, 8 drinks on weekends by themselves, you know, I can almost guarantee your life would be better. Because are you always happy when you drink? Do you think you're going to be happy and that's why you have a drink, but it just numbs a little bit of pain? And that pain you could deal with in other ways. You can deal with the pain. I mean, so I was numbing without a doubt. There's the not liking myself, but there's so much other shit going on the surface that I probably won't dive into, because somebody will dial 000 and I'll get taken away in a straitjacket. But yeah, I was numbing, right? But you can deal with those issues in other ways, and you can deal with them permanently rather than dealing with them in a temporary way that has severe consequences. Tools and practices that helped. I've already got into that. Meditation, fitness. I put this in here, but I don't know. I've been doing therapy for years, and it's good, but I think it's like a band-aid on a bullet wound in some ways. Like, I think therapy alone's not enough, especially if you've got some serious issues that you're dealing with, like I had. I think a more holistic approach with meditation, fitness, community. Community is actually a big one. And community is one that I struggled with when I was drinking, right? Because I would recluse. I would go out and drink. I think I embarrassed myself. Probably did, but a lot of people said, I was fine. And I don't think they didn't like me because of my drinking. Some people would have. But yeah, I would recluse and feel a disconnection from the communities that I'm a part of. You know, like, community is important. And yeah, I don't know, I had this thing so I would say I'm part of 2 communities. The entrepreneur community, part of an entrepreneurs organization, and my high school friends community. But I had this thing where I was just like, maybe anxious, but I walked around with a lot of shame, and that didn't allow me to fully integrate within those communities. And my relationship with both of those communities is so much stronger now than it's ever been. Misconceptions about sobriety. I think I thought before I quit drinking that sobriety would always be hard. Like, it would always be a struggle. You would be living in struggle for the rest of your life. And this is the way, like, AA paints it, right? Like, you're an addict forever. Like, you're always an addict. The struggle never ends. The struggle never ends, brother. It did for me. And I am not diminishing others' experiences. I understand that others struggle with their whole life. But I had two months of struggle, and then probably 6 months of slight struggle, and then 6 months of heaven. No, 6 months, things got easy, right? Lessons learned. I think I am a lot more confident than I always thought I was. I was just using alcohol as a crutch. How it shaped my understanding of fun. I actually think into Australian society, or the people that or the groups that I grew up around, that alcohol equals fun. And in some ways it can, but it also comes with a lot of baggage. And there's other fun things out there. I've recently gone into mountain biking. I have I don't know, I've got like anxiety that I sound like a boring sober person, but I have so much fun riding up and down a mountain. More fun than I've ever had on a night out. And then I have days of glowing afterwards, not crawling around, vomiting, feeling like a shit husband and father because I can't get out of bed the next day. Relaxation, that's turned into doing weights and meditation. And escape. I don't have that much to escape from anymore, right? I think I've faced most of my demons. Now, looking ahead, I don't think I'll ever drink again. Life's too good. Like, yeah, I think I'm genuinely done. Okay, psychedelics. A story that made things easier that I promised at the start. I have told this story on the podcast before, but it was very late in an episode. So I had this experience on mescaline, right? I was deep in the Australian bush and I took mescaline and I walked and I sat on a rock for hours and hours on end. It was actually a crazy experience. Beautiful day, literally like in the middle of nowhere. And I had this experience where I visualized my family tree. As I mentioned, there is a lot of addiction on one side of my family tree. And what I saw is I saw that side of the family tree. And I saw, like, I had an out-of-body experience where I saw alcohol abuse and addiction, drug addiction. I want to be a bit cautious here that I don't mention anybody specific, but let's say my family tree, you've got me, you've got addiction, you've got addiction, you've got addiction, you've got addiction. I am German. There is a lot of multi-generational trauma there, okay? Things were as bad as you could imagine from a few generations up in my family. They saw some of the darkest times in human history. And that I believe that instilled such a deep level of pain that got passed down, and they dealt with it through drugs and alcohol. And then you've got generation, and then you've got me, and I'm dealing with my pain with drugs and alcohol. And then who's next? My kids. And I went, fuck that. Like, I'm not angry at the generations before me. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not passing on this demon, right? Like, it had to stop. It had to stop somewhere. And that gives a hell of a lot of meaning to my sobriety. It also made it easy. It made me 100% sure that I am doing the right thing, that this is what I want my life to be, and this is the example I want to set for my family. And that paired with a few other psychedelic experiences, which I can dive into another time, but message me. A lot of you guys message me and say you love the show. Thank you so much for that. So if you ever want to hear about some of those other experiences, message me. But yeah, like I describe all of those other things as band-aids. Like therapy, I describe that as a band-aid, and band-aids help. But the real heavy hitters and the things that have made me live a genuinely happy life have come through psychedelic experiences. Have definitely changed my life for the better. And I'm not recommending them because they're very extreme. So you must have a very good reason, which I believe I did. Okay. I hope that didn't get too preachy, but I'll say it one more time. If you think that your life might be better if you quit drinking, then it will be. because you are suffering because of your drinking. Otherwise, you wouldn't be thinking that in the first place. And you might be like me. I'm preaching again. You might be like me in kidding yourself about the little positives, right? Like I had a few little positives. Like one of my positives was like I love going out with my wife and having a wine over dinner, and it's such a good bonding experience, and it's good for our marriage. My marriage is better than it's ever fucking been. I was kidding myself. I love going out with old friends and having a couple of drinks and reminiscing. That didn't go away. Okay. I just don't drink drive into a tree on the way home. What was the other one? There was 3 positives that I couldn't quit drinking because of. The last one was unwinding, and I found another method for that. And I actually find that I need to unwind a lot less because I hold a lot less anxiety these days. Thanks for listening. I hope that wasn't too preachy and ranty. And also, if you made it this far, you're a fucking legend. I mean, I've had quite a bit of positive support for this podcast. If you liked it, if you made it this far, flick us a message. Yeah, tell me if you liked or you hated the solo episode. Just message me and say, never do a fucking solo episode again. You can't talk and you're too preachy. Thank you. Love you all. Bye.